Louise O'Reilly.
There's 9,000 people on the housing list in Fingal. 225 of these are families. 185 of those families will tonight sleep in emergency accommodation. I've been contacted by a young mother from Swords who has 2 children with special needs, one of whom has a service dog. This woman had to fight tooth and nail to get a service dog for her poor child. She's facing eviction in May. She has nowhere to go. There is nowhere for her to rent, and there is no emergency accommodation that will take her, her children and this vital service dog. This is Ireland in 2016, Minister, and this is not right. I'd like to extend my support to the campaign being spearheaded by Paul Donnelly in Tyrellstown, and while we welcome the news from the developer that there will be no evictions until the tenants have found alternative accommodation, we see now a shrinking rental sector with more tenants coming on stream. These people will now be competing with the young mother, her 2 children with special needs, for accommodation. We have a caretaker government, and we need strong legislation to prevent more Tyrellstowns. We cannot rely on the goodwill of so-called vulture capitalists. There are potentially tens of thousands in the same situation as the people in Tyrellstown, and this will continue until we have the legislation in place to deal with it. It is not good enough for the Minister in charge to simply do nothing. The heavy reliance of this caretaker government on the private rental sector and the increase in rents, coupled with the decrease in rent allowance, has led to a sharp increase, especially in the towns of Balbriggan and Swords, and it's led to families no longer being able to bridge the gap between rent allowance and the rising cost of rents. So they find themselves at the mercy of the Housing Department in Fingal County Council. This situation continues in Fingal and right around the country. We need action, Minister, not just debates. And if I could just finish by saying what we do not need is a trip to the Twilight Zone courtesy of An Taoiseach, telling us, speaking as if there was no crisis at all. In the real world, not the Twilight Zone where the caretaker government live, there is a very real crisis.
Deputy.